I'll finish up EQ with a few examples of the typical application of EQ on some common instruments, and then in the next tutorial, a little about approaching EQ in the context of a mix. I'll start again with the drum kit. Drums are often fairly heavily EQ'd, usually to remove the boxy mid-range equality and add depth and crispness. Kick often gets a little boost somewhere in the lows, and another in the upper mids to bring out the beater's attack. The snare can oftentimes sound too boxy, so a mid-range cut somewhere between 300 to 400 Hz and around 1 kHz can help tame that. A boost in the upper bass range, maybe about 150 Hz or so, can add some fatness. Another around 3 to 5 kHz can bring out the rattle of the snares when that's desirable. Cymbals might benefit from a little extra air in the high treble range. Electric bass, or synth bass, can also be fairly heavily EQ'd, but not always the way you'd initially think. Someone's first instinct might be to crank up the really low end, around 50 to 100 Hz, for a nice fat bass sound. But that might not be the best way to go. Too much deep bass energy can overpower and mask or cover up other instruments in a mix. I'll talk about that more later. Often a slight boost around 200 Hz or so will add punch to a bass track, without adding too much boominess. But remember, the best choice of frequency range and EQ gain will also depend on the tonal balance of that particular recording itself. A glance at a spectrum display, if available, can help guide your choices. For example, if you see there's already a lot of energy in a particular range, you'll probably want to avoid boosting there. Displays like this are not a substitute for using your ears, but they can come in handy if you're not sure which frequencies to start applying EQ at. Here's another example. Acoustic guitar is often EQ'd differently depending on context. While it's common to add a little high-frequency air in any case, a solo acoustic guitar performance might benefit from a warmer sound with a little added low end or lower mid-range. But if the guitar is a constant part of a busy mix, it's very common to instead drastically roll off the lows and accentuate the percussive sound of the pick scraping across the strings with a little boost around 4 to 5K. This may make the guitar sound overly thin if heard alone, but help it to sit in the mix clearly without stepping on other instruments. And that brings us to another important consideration: EQing tracks within the mix. I'll cover that next.